This video is a segment from the Telecast. Check the description for the full episode. This is something that I really want to talk about, and this is something that I would do a YouTube video on, and that is just science fiction in general, where it came from. Look at all of these classic science fiction shows. You don't even have to look at the books. That's a whole other subject. You start talking about like Isaac Asimov and Harlan Williams. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. These very twisted, crazy concepts that are just mind-boggling. I don't know. And the guys who write them are like crazy. Like you listen to the interviews of some of these guys. I've been like binging interviews with these like old science fiction writers, and it is crazy to hear the way they think. Like they just don't care. They give zero F's, man. I just totally just clicked something here. But what I'm getting at is this model. It's like why Black Mirror to me is so good but also so bad. Every episode is self-contained for the most part. They do have some overlapping ones or sequels or whatever. But they take a concept, they make a little story around it, and the focus is on the science or the concept or the technology. It's this, what would the world be like if people had brain chips is literally every episode of Black Mirror, by the way. But it's like, what would the world be like if, you could brainwash an army into thinking that the opposing force is monsters when in reality they're civilians. That was an episode. What would the world be like if an animated character online ended up getting so much traction that it could run for office and potentially win? That was another one. It's like these concepts that you can't explore in the real world, but you can kind of guess what they would be like, and then down the road in the future, like some of them come true, like movies and stories about landing on the moon, and then later on we landed on the moon, supposedly. I'm just kidding, guys. But you get what I'm saying, where it's episodic. Rick and Morty had that formula where it would take a funny concept. It was a lot like the Star Trek model, where it was a cast of characters that had development over the course of a season, but they would do little self-contained things. It's go to this planet and do this, and go here and do this. That's where I think The Mandalorian really suffered, because that is it's not a crazy science fiction. The thing is, the prequel movies were really more science fiction than anything, because the prequel movies were about character development, like Anakin going through what he did, and it was about the governments. It was about Palpatine's rise to power, the way he manipulated people, he manipulated religion, he manipulated, all these people under him. He, betrayed the Trade Federation, he betrayed Dooku, and he did all of it to like execute this master plan, and it was crazy to see that unfold. And you knew at the end he was going to rise to power. Darth Vader was going to be his understudy. It's cool to see that unfold, and it sucks that modern Star Wars just doesn't take concepts to the extreme like they should. The Mandalorian would have been perfect, dude, and they started out doing this kind of thing where you go to every planet, and it's like, here's the thing. It's not just a Monster of the Week format, it's a concept built into it. And if you guys have seen any of my other stuff that I've done, this is a big reason why I'm a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fan, because every episode or two is this same idea where you deal with the same cast of characters in a new setting. They come across a character with an ability, and it's kind of like a puzzle, It's like a little test for them. It deals with concepts of whatever, like what would happen if somebody could fight you inside of your dreams? You couldn't go to sleep, like Freddy Krueger, but with like the weird, JoJo take on it. I don't know. What would be, let me just think, what would it be like if somebody had the ability to do this or this or this? It's like it's why old comic books were so good. Man, science fiction, I keep saying it over and over again, but science fiction is like in major need of a comeback, and it's kind of coming back in the form of, some of these things, I guess. Like Black Mirror's got some misses, but it's got a lot of really big hits. I don't know. I just think like some kind of science fiction show where it just is like, listen, guys, this is not for, this is not a fun thing necessarily. Like there's some fun episodes, but like it's meant to make you think, the things that are in these old stories, like iRobot or Bicentennial Man, like those are movies that are based off Isaac Asimov stories. And they they don't necessarily drive home the concepts because they kind of focus on other elements to make them more appealing to the masses. But, dude, you can't be appealing to the masses if you want to go all the way in. This comes back to what we were talking about with The Simpsons, where if you try to appeal to everybody, you get really stretched thin. Is it better to have a wide, flat foundation that can grow up over time, or is it better to have fleeting little hits? Is it better to have, a stretched out audience, that's like, you're appealing to everybody a little bit, or to appeal to one niche a lot, and then you can develop relationships with them. Back to the Disney ruins everything thing. It's just so facts, is what Eli says in the chat. Yeah, last week we were talking about how Disney just kind of took on the brands and assumed, they just kind of forced it. They were like, well, we'll figure it out, or we'll take our own spin on it. And they didn't respect the fan bases is a big part of it, I'm sorry, but like Star Wars and Marvel, there are a lot of female fans, but it's predominantly male. And I look at my own channel, and my own channel has a dominant male audience. And it's just how it is. And it's like, I'm not going to sit here and try to force down things that I think, I don't even know, because I'm doing pop culture stuff. There's not really a lot of things that I think, speak to like women over men. But I'm not going to sit here and all of a sudden try to start catering to an audience that I don't naturally already have. Disney tried to take their, young, like you look at the shonen audience in Japan, where it's like a young teenager and up male, mostly like, I would say males aged like, do like the 18 to 30 mark, but push it down to a little bit lower, because I guess in Japan, like, younger boys are, exposed to a lot more violence in a normal setting. Then again, Japan's history is like pretty wacky, so whatever. But my point is, like, Disney, instead of catering to this younger male audience of, kind of nerds, or like, Star Wars fans, or like comic book fans, the same people who like anime, the same people who like, just exploring these worlds, like Lord of the Rings, all this kind of stuff. They just started appealing to families and to everybody. And it's like, you're losing the kind of like, this is my thing, like the independence, the claiming of that that product. If Rick and Morty stopped being edgy, a lot of people would hate it, because that's what sets it apart from other shows. And yeah, that's, I guess, all I have to say about that.